tweet of mine? Didn't I tweet something about that?
Probably.
Yeah, stealing my ideas. That's what people do.
Okay, I'm gonna go live.
From Los Angeles, California,
Okay.
this is Now Daily with Robert Crawford, uncovering real stories worth sharing. Join the talk at nowdaily.com/show.
Welcome to Now Daily. I'm Robert Crawford. We're here tonight. We're going to be discussing what's happening in the news. Today it was really about the Mueller report. Everyone's still talking about this thing, even though they don't really know that much. I saw Lindsey Graham speaking today, and we have Julia Song with us tonight, joining us as a co-host. How's it going, Julia?
Good.
Good. So, the Mueller report. I know I did a special report on this on Friday, talking about it a little bit, since the Attorney General, Bill Barr, has come out with, I think it was only like 5 or 6 pages of a statement basically saying that they found no Russian collusion. But what's interesting was Lindsey Graham said today in his, I guess, press conference, I don't even know why he had his own press conference, but I guess he said that there was definitive proof that Russia hacked the DNC servers, although I never saw any proof that they actually did anything about that. Julia, have you heard about like the DNC servers? Is this a big deal?
I haven't heard about it. I didn't see that press conference, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did hack the servers. I mean, they're hackers; they can do whatever they want. That doesn't mean that they have influenced the elections or that Trump had anything to do with it. I mean, if you let them hack, they'll hack into your grocery store, they'll hack into your phone, they'll hack into your grandmother's phone. It doesn't matter. They'll just hack around. And I doubt that they have the security measures in place to keep that from happening. But to what extent does this really, influence our elections? I don't think it does.
So I think the biggest claim I've seen is either they spent a few $100,000, some Russian entity, supposedly on Facebook ads. We don't even know if that's true or not. The FBI report did say that the Russians hacked the DNC, but then like 3 days later, anyone who follows QAnon realized that they dropped a lot of information on WikiLeaks about Vault 7, which was talking about how the CIA has programs in place where they can mimic a hack looking like any other entity. So it could have been hacked, but it could have been hacked by, internal people or people in the intelligence agencies. But I'm more like fascinated why Kim.com is still screaming that that's bullshit and that the hack wasn't a hack and that it was downloaded from the hard drive onto like a flash drive device by Seth Rich.
Well, yeah, I feel like a lot of people need to understand that, I came here from Brazil, and I realized that there's this, I guess, obsession with Russia. But if you think about it, I'm pretty sure that there's a lot more countries out there who's actually trying every day to hack into U.S. stuff. There's China, there's North Korea, there's all kinds of countries. I wouldn't doubt if even our allies would try to hack into some of this information under a different cover. And I wouldn't doubt that, CIA will be trying to do the same to try to figure out what's going on in the DNC servers. I think that they just have to put more money towards securing their servers rather than, blaming people for hacking them, because it's just always going to happen. They're not a governmental entity anyway. They're just a party, so they have to be responsible for their own safety of their files. And I think China and many other countries are probably just as hungry for that type of information as Russia or anybody else.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think Russia has really just been made the enemy for a number of reasons. I mean, the main thing is that Russia has really just become the boogeyman, a lot of it because of the mainstream media, right? So I think what's coming out now is that this was all kind of a plot that was construed upon, and we need to kind of really go back and figure that out, because that's what's coming down the pipe next, right? If the Russian collusion thing was a hoax, who started the hoax? And we already know now that it was pretty much just the media narrative that was started, and a lot of people say it was started within 24 hours of Trump getting elected, but they planned it back like months earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. It's showing that I have poor connection, so let me know if I freeze or not. But I feel that's interesting because people make Russia to be this boogeyman, as Russia is capable of influencing the elections in the United States. That's laughable. But where does that come from? It comes from the Cold War. And what is that based on? That's based on, communism versus capitalism. So we're so afraid of this history behind communism, but yet we're implementing a lot of communist and socialist ideas into our government right now. So are we afraid of Russia? Is Russia that far? I would suggest that Russia is in our Congress right now through the form of Ocasio-Cortez and some of these other Bernie Sanders and some of these other people. They're the ones that are representing Russia. Russia is not doing anything. Americans are doing worse for our democracy, for our republic, than actual Russians.
Right. I mean, I think that's pretty clear. The Russian thing's very interesting, though, because I just watched last week the Edge of Wonder guys on YouTube. I don't know if you watched them, but they did a special on, like, they're doing one currently about communism and, like, socialism, and they went to, like, the roots of Russia. And it was interesting that Lenin was kind of put in power by the big bankers, but Marx and these like kind of Marxist ideologies had two paths to take. They had the kind of direct totalitarian path, which is what Russia did, right? They put Lenin in, they had a revolution, they killed off a bunch of people, re-education camps, the whole 9 yards. And then they had a second theory that what they implemented in America was the boiling frogs theory, right? By like incremental government regulations, incremental growth of government, you end up with the same system.
Yep, and it's happening. I see it already. I mean, I come from a country where we actually had a socialist government to take power for 16 years, and everything that I saw leading up to that, I'm seeing here too, and I'm really concerned. But people don't realize it because they think, oh, it's Russia, it's across the pond. It's so far away. No, it's not. It's here. It's happening. It's, people, Americans are the actual problem. It's not Russians. I think you need to leave Russia alone and focus on the actual people here who's making a paycheck out of your money and who's trying to destroy your country. They're the real boogeyman.
Right, right. So, yeah, that's interesting. So, but the main thing is that, so you're saying that the Russian narrative has just been going on through the media for like the past few decades because it's communism versus capitalism, basically just getting us riled up, and you have to have an enemy in order to create all these proxy wars and basically be an excuse to just spend unlimited amounts of money, right? Because at first they pushed the nuclear bomb thing. I'm surprised they're not pushing that much. Before, for decades, it was, you gotta, if you're in school, you're doing nuclear bomb drills in case something goes off, right? Scaring everyone that at any second the whole world could blow up. Because then when you're that scared, I think back then there was taxes that were like 70, 80, 90% on the rich. So it was interesting that they transitioned from that. Then Russia died off, but now they're bringing it back. But my theory is that the only reason we're really talking about Russia right now is because the Clintons and Obama administration and the deep state players cut all these deals like Uranium One with Russia. So they were like, okay, what's the best way to deflect ourselves from this, from actually getting prosecuted? It's put all this media pressure on Trump, because if you put that pressure on Trump, it's very hard for him to prosecute you on Russian misdeeds.
Yeah, I think that they also use that thing where you talked about people being, over time indoctrinated to feel fear related to a certain aspect of something. They're always looking for a crisis so that they can benefit out of it. I don't think that there was only Russia that they made deals with. I think that they made deals with everyone. I think that every single person that went across their path got screwed up. But I think they picked Russia because there's that historical thing that whenever Americans, most Americans, maybe even a little older than us, whenever they hear Russia, or people who are around in the 80s, they hear Russia, they're like, oh my God, they're the bad guys. So they felt like it would get their most attention, and they did do a lot of dealings with them, wasn't it? Biden that had a whole lot of interactions with those people, and you just have to really worry about why are they pushing these narratives, because I don't believe, a lot of people are like, um, Mueller came out and there's no collusion. I know there's no collusion. I know there's no collusion when they started this. I know there's no collusion a year ago. Why are they taking so many years and they haven't found anything, and they're wasting so much money? I think that this is just to deflect our attention to the actual issues. And so I'm really worried when they try to bring these things up that come out of nowhere, because it just, your attention should be elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, what's really interesting too is we go back to this uranium one thing, right? And there's been a lot of reports. I've been unable to fully verify it, but that Mueller was involved with the uranium deal, and that he actually hand delivered yellow cake uranium, which is basically unenriched uranium, basically rich dirt of uranium, but they got to centrifuge it directly on a tarmac to the Russians. So I think the weird thing is why everyone now thinks he's some special guy. They think he's special because he's been in the government top positions for so long, but look at what he's really been put in place to do. Did you know that he was made the director of the FBI the week before 9/11?
No.
It's crazy, because what I think from my perspective from researching this, he was put in to be the cleaner of 9/11. There was never a proper investigation. They destroyed all the evidence 9/11, like all the steel. Mueller's like the deep state cover-up guy.
Like the establishment that much. I think that there should be term limits. I feel like a lot of people who make government work their, full life. Like, I can understand certain positions, but when you go into positions like a director of something, or the highest, the big boss, then you should be, and you're jumping from these positions to other positions equally as powerful. I think there should be term limits for even those folks.
So you think there should be term limits for even like the director of FBI, the IRS professional? Because right now our system's really dumb. We say, hey, you can do this job. It's going to be very hard to fire you. The longer you stay, it's all based on seniority. So you're going to get promotions, and then we're going to retire after 20 years or so, and then we're going to pay you even though you're not working anymore for pretty much the rest of your life.
Yeah, I think big government positions should come with term limits, only because it's just, these people, they stick around forever, and they're easily bought. So I feel like once you reach a certain level, let's say once you reach a level of director, you can only be a director for 10 years. And after that, you're out, and somebody else gets to be promoted. Because it's just like, there's so much power. People they focus on the president, they focus on the Senate.
I think there might be term limits for the FBI director already. I'm not sure, but they've been switching them out. Maybe it's just because the new president comes in. I'm not sure.
But they jump them to another position of power. So like they go to run the CIA, and then they go to run whatever. And it's like they're all
John Brennan, for sure.
But through the big government position. And I think that Mueller is one of those people that's been, bought out. And this comes to show that he's actually not that good, because it took him 2 years to find nothing. So, I mean, how good is that guy?
Well, I think he was the cleaner. I think it was put in place. I think he spent 2 years digging up as much dirt as he possibly could, looking for anything to get him on. To me, I'm kind of baffled though, because it's like if the government really wanted to arrest someone, like it really isn't that difficult to me. You look at their bank statements, you say they did something wrong, and it's like there's so many laws. There's like more laws than you could even ever read in a lifetime. So if they wanted to do that, why didn't they catch him? Or they just thought, such a big fish like Trump, you really need to. I'm kind of surprised they didn't frame him. I was kind of expecting that.
Yeah, I think that he spent honestly 2 years wiping his ass because this whole investigation was built up on a fake dossier by Opera Research by the DNC, and so this didn't have a reason to start in the first place. But then they went on and they found out so many other things, like for example, Obama was wiring Trump Tower in New York, yeah. In DC is the Trump Hotel. In New York is the Trump Tower. There's all these different names that F that. But anyway, here's the point. I feel like a lot of Democrats should have been put in jail by this investigation. Why are just Republicans and people associated with Trump? Why aren't Democrats in jail as well or being investigated? You mean to tell me that the government is only made by Republicans, that there's no Democrats? Meanwhile, they go through all these requests to foreign governments, 13 requests to foreign governments, years and years, 40 different agents, and they don't find anything bad on either side. I mean, to me, what does that tell me? I feel like, especially since we're coming from 8 years of Obama, there should be more dirt that they should have uncovered, but they didn't. So I'm wondering, what were they actually looking at? Were they looking really good, or were they just looking for, trying to frame Trump and overlooked everything that they found in the meantime?
Well, there's another theory that I've heard. I've heard that some of these players that were in the deep state, or these establishment people like Mueller, were flipped because they had stuff on them. And I've heard a theory that when Trump met with Mueller before he was appointed special counsel, they used this hoax. They knew the Democrats were going to push this hoax, but they used it to actually prosecute the Democrats and the deep state players. And there's a theory that there's now over like 83,000 sealed indictments. So what if they've actually been working and using this and all these subpoenas to actually go after the deep state players, and then the dominoes and the hammer's about to come down on all these people? Is that possible?
Well, I hope so. I just made a tweet about this today that Hillary Clinton said that if she goes down, she'll take half of DC with her. Well, I hope that happens. I hope she goes down. She's the first one, actually.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, there's been a movement called the Great Awakening, and it's cute. Everyone's all about this QAnon, and you have the media going after it. I've been keeping up with it. I don't know if you've been reading the post, but I can't tell if it's real, but there's a lot of interesting information that it's posting. So if QAnon's right, this is all according to their plan. They knew these narratives were going to come in. They knew that they were just waiting for this Mueller thing to wrap up before they could go into the next phase, which I guess was unsealing the indictments and starting trials.
Yeah, what happened to the FISA document that was going to be declassified? I want to say that declassified. I think that we need to see that. And I mean, we have to really figure out, because here's the deal. Trump did not get the wall, and he cannot build this wall by 2020. He can't. So we don't have the wall, which was one of the biggest
I don't get that either, though. Why? Like, I don't understand. I think he easily has the power to do it. I think it's like more of he's playing chess. People are like, look, Trump's either retarded or he's like this grandmaster chess player. And I've actually heard that he like literally is a grandmaster chess player. And I've heard a rumor that like even his son Barron is like an official grandmaster chess master or something. Is it chess master? claim.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you're talking about. But the two things that he ran on was building the wall and draining the swamp. If he can deliver both, then we're in trouble, right? 2020 may be a little far-fetched if they push a good Democrat. But if he
But
delivers
is there
at least
one?
the
I don't
swamp,
know. I mean, even if
I
they
think
go with Bernie, I don't think Bernie has enough to beat Trump now.
I
Maybe
think
in the last
Biden
election.
Biden would
Biden?
be a
No
good one.
way. Are you kidding me? There's so many creepy
Yeah, Biden
photos
is
of
is
Biden with
a
like little kids that.
well, but I have a lot of liberal followers, and every time I post something about Biden, they go crazy because they love Biden. So I guess we'll have to see if Biden is able to cater to the moderates and the unaffiliated. I think it's creepy, but a lot of people don't pay attention to politics like we do. A lot of people, just don't. I hope that he gets exposed just like Hillary, though. But anyway, the point is,
If
I
if
think
the if
he
the
needs to
indictments are right, he
deliver on
will.
draining the swamp.
If
Yeah, I
he
think he needs to deliver,
if
and he will.
QAnon's right, then this is what's going to go down. And I've heard a lot of people say me. I mean, I don't know. There's this guy Mark Taylor who's all about like prophecies. He's been saying this since 2014, before Trump even got elected, like to the T. It's crazy. He said that Trump was going to get elected, and then there was going to be all these sealed, basically trials of, the bad actors, and all this stuff will be exposed. I've heard it from a lot of people. So,
What's the name of
I
this guy?
Mark Taylor.
Does he accept personal consultations?
Yeah, you should go. We should have him on the show. We should interview
Yeah,
him. Let's email him up. Yeah, I mean,
let's
he's
do
very
it.
Christian with it. He goes from like kind of a Bible. He said, he says God's telling him this is what's going to happen. I, but what's weird to me is like my own family members are telling me that they're having visions. They had visions before any of this even happened. So that's why I take it with a grain of salt. If it wasn't for those things, and then I saw QAnon, I would say, well, maybe that's even a deep state fake out. What if the deep state is so good with media that they know there's a subsection that will only go for like the anti-media, so then they control that too.
Yeah, a lot of these things I just guide myself based on, my gut feeling and my knowledge and my experience. I try to stay away from this people who say this or say that, because a lot of the times, like for example, I feel like it's so easy for us to fall for the fake news that it's crazy. I mean, we didn't used to have this level of misinformation, and I wonder what kind of, like, it happened mostly recently, where everybody is so stuck in this level of fake news that we can't even have a conversation without me spilling out some very fake facts. So, for example, I was making these tweets about McCain, and I was like, "Oh, I don't like McCain. McCain is an asshole. Sorry, is a very bad person in my view." And a lot of people were like, "Oh, McCain is a war hero," and some people are like, "McCain was pardoned by Nixon," and
A lot of
at some
people
point
say he
I
was
fell
put
for
to
that.
death by Trump in these military tribunals.
Yeah, but he in reality was never pardoned. So he in reality won a lot of awards. Now, I don't think those awards were well deserved. I do think that he went through a lot. I think that he sacrificed for his country, but I don't think they were well deserved.
Well, of like all the
But
people that
that
he got killed on his Navy ship, right?
exactly, that's why. I mean, anybody that gets tortured because of her country deserves respect.
Or like what he
But
did with his wife. He like left his first wife. It was like a total dick move what he pulled. I mean, there's like a whole pattern. Like his meetings with ISIS, those are pretty well documented. I mean, I guess you could say he's this great
I just,
military hero. I just think he was a well-connected military guy because his dad was an admiral. So he's kind of a
I
fuck-up
just,
son
he
of
had
the
a bad
admiral.
he had a bad military record from the beginning, and once he got captured, which was a misfortune, yes, he did get tortured, but he gave out everybody's names. I mean, he was seen as a good guy, the good American guy to the Vietnamese because of how much good information he was giving that was leading to the death of actual Americans. Now, I think that, he's not a good guy, but the fact that, for example, a lot of people still believe that he was sentenced to death and pardoned by Nixon, it goes to tell me that we just don't know how much fake news is actually part of our beliefs, and it's actually, making up our minds. So I just try to stick to a very common sense, like politics. I think that Trump is not stupid, and I think he's going to try to deliver in at least one of his points. I hope he does, and I hope that we can see the wall in 2024, by 2024, and I hope that happens. I don't see why not.
Do you have any fear that the wall could be used against us if the wrong people get in power?
How's that?
Well, if the socialists get in power, right, and then you want to try to get out of here because the place is going to shit, we're kind of stuck.
Yeah, well, I think that they're gonna put down the wall only because the and this is what the Soviet Union did, and this is what every single communist and socialist country does when they get to a certain extent, right? They don't have ways to fund themselves. They put to misery every single person living in their country, and they run out of money, pretty much. So they want to expand, and that's what the globalist agenda is all about. They want to expand because they know that once they bankrupt the country, then they need to have some other country to go to, and having walls and culture and nationalism and patriotism are, not beneficial to their agenda. They want to just be able to expand, and that's what Soviet Union did so successfully in that area. Everybody spoke similar languages, everybody had a similar climate, a similar culture, so they just expanded so well that they became a powerhouse, and it was very hard to fight them because they ran out of their money. So they just kept bringing other people's money in, and they were never, I guess the government was never taken down or bankrupt because of that. But I think that they will just actually take the wall down.
If they get in power. Well, I don't think so because, well, you might be right.
When they get in power, they will. They will. Mark my words. I am your Mark Taylor. Mark my words.
But that doesn't. The only reason for the globalism is to bring in outside people because they know that they can control them and they're going to vote 80% for the Democrats. Once the Democrats retain power, they don't care about bringing outside people. It's nothing about that. It's just being able to change the voting base. That's why they're trying to vote. They're trying to allow illegals to vote, and they're trying to allow like 16-year-olds to vote.
Yeah, that's what they did. It's very curious.
Like, what's up with that? Like, okay, maybe we could have a debate about 16-year-olds. I could possibly see at least a discussion. But the illegal citizens, they're not citizens. That's the whole point. Like, the whole point of voting should be like citizens. It was really weird. Like, the original idea was you had to be a landowner to vote. And then it became, okay, now anyone can vote. So now they're like, well, anyone who's a citizen or just you're here. So what, if you're on vacation, you can vote too? If I go over to Florida, can I vote in Florida's elections?
Yeah, I think that it's funny as hell because I saw that happen in Brazil too. The socialists, one of the first things that they did was allowing 16-year-olds to vote and motivating them to vote, saying that they should go out there and vote. So you see a lot of, patterns, and history, it repeats itself. So you're seeing all these very concerning patterns of things happening. I mean, if you're 16, I love you, I wish you well, but you don't know life the way that I do. So take the back seat and write it for a couple more years until you know what the hell's going on. And even if you are a very mature 16-year-old, look around you, because the chances are that you don't really recognize any of your peers as being as mature as you do. You're probably one of the outcasts, one of the people that is just an exception. So imagine all of your classmates actually voting. Imagine the football hunk or the cheerleaders voting. Do you think that those people must be great? I'm sorry, there's a lot of good cheerleaders out there, but a lot of those people, imagine them in a very superficial approach voting. So I don't think they should, and that's my take on it. I live that you guys haven't. So F off. I'm worried we're gonna. Can I speak a lot of cursing words here, or are we just gonna
Yeah, we're on YouTube.
lose
Who cares?
the ability to monetize?
Honestly, people should go to nowdaily.com/show to watch the live stream instead of YouTube, because YouTube may kick us off. They did before. So that's an important thing. But yeah, I don't give a fuck. I mean, I think this whole cursing thing, even on like TV shows, is pretty dumb too. Like, why is the FCC involved on what people can and can't say? Their excuse is, as kids, kids shouldn't hear this. Well, there was a video that Joe Rogan was talking about where some woman from San Francisco, I can't remember, she was complaining to the CEO of YouTube because her son was watching videos, and her son was watching Joe Rogan and then Ben Shapiro, and then she's like, and then it's just a snowball into white patriarchy from there. So she's like, I wish YouTube can ban Shapiro. So it's like, at what point?
It's never gonna ban.
You don't think it's gonna ban Shapiro? I think Shapiro is like the conservative, like kind of alternative puppet.
Yes, thank God you said that. Yeah, he's controlled opposition. That's what he is. A lot of people, I'm gonna say this because whatever, you guys are just gonna listen to it. If you don't, fuck off. But I get a lot of people messaging me, and a lot of people are defending Ben Shapiro. And I posted something saying that he's a neocon, and people are like, "Oh, you gotta prove it. You made the claim, so you have the burden of the proof." Fuck off. First of all, if you don't know that, like I thought you're just gonna defend him. I was like, oh my God, I can't hold it together. I have to say something about it. Like, I like him for the value that he adds. He brings a lot of young people, and it brings a lot of awareness to the issues. But I think that's the whole thing about fake news, is that people need to really think about what they're saying, who they believe in. Because Ben Shapiro is not your guy. Ben Shapiro is not going to be a good president in 2024. Just back off. He's not the guy for you. And we just have to realize the kind of information that we're consuming out there.
Yeah, I mean, Ben Shapiro is definitely an interesting... he's an interesting guy. I guess he went to Harvard, right? That's his main thing. But at the end of the day, it's like, I don't know if I am a huge fan. I really think he's just, like you said, control opposition. He's really not calling out anything. If anything, I think he's a Democrat that just says he's a Republican.
Yeah, well, that's the thing that you have to realize about people, and the people on the right do that a lot. They make all these individuals their heroes. And for example, Lindsey Graham, I love Lindsey Graham. I think he's great, but he was a rhino all of his life. Just now, he's been, I guess, I don't know what they call it, the laser eyes activated. He's been activated just now because of Trump. But he's still defending McCain. He's still doing all of these things. So so if you're looking for a hero, you have to keep on looking, I guess, because there's, you have to like people for the value that they add. And Ben Shapiro has the value that he's adding, and he's being good for the movement in a way or another. But I think that if you try to love him, unconditionally for everything that he is, I don't think that makes any sense. Oh my god, I'm just like doing all these hand movements because of my new nails. But anyway, I don't think that he is all that, and I don't know if anybody right now is, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's the controlled opposition is weird. It's like who is controlled opposition, who isn't. I think anyone that's getting banned is like a legit independent person. Like Laura Loomer. What's your thoughts on Loomer?
I like her.
So you think, I mean, she's called out a lot of people. I would say she's probably one of the best journalists there are right now because she's actually like going into the field, getting in people's faces, calling a lot of stuff out, which is interesting. You know, her big thing is she was just at CARE. Is it CARE? I think it's like an Islamic event, and you know, she's been very vocal about Ilhan Omar. Is that her name, Congresswoman? What's her deal? Like, I guess she. Do you think she actually married her brother?
Well, that is something that they're trying to prove, and the other side is saying that there's no actual proof. It's very hard to prove those things because things like documentations and whatever, like those things are so difficult to get when you're coming from a different country. Like in the U.S., everything is in the system.
Especially like
Everything is.
Somalia. I think she came from Somalia.
Yeah, I mean, her birth certificate is probably just ashes of the ground, if there is any. And that's why, the ban from the countries that are in war is so important because they're like, oh, we have to do actual vetting of those people that are coming here. How are you going to vet them? How are you going to vet them? They have no documents. There's nothing in these people's past. You don't even know if their name that they're giving you is their actual name. So it's hard to prove those things. I like Laura Loomer because I'm a populist. I like to be on the ground. I don't like the whole suit and try to be politically correct and try to hang amongst your peers and just drink wine. I like that she goes out there and she actually puts work into what she believes in and what she does. And I think that that's amazing. I wish more people would do that. The left is really great at doing that. And I feel like the politics has gone so far away from the direction that the people are in. Because I remember, being in rallies when I was a kid. So my mom was a campaign attorney. She's not anymore. But I was in rallies and political events all of my life. And I was on the floor. I was talking to people. I was being introduced. I was, somebody would bring something, like a community member would bring some sweets that they baked or something that they baked. And so you're dealing with all kinds of people. You're dealing with people that have, that are perhaps dirty. You're dealing with people that don't look as good, don't look as refined. Actual people from the community. But you're holding their hands, you're talking to them, you're hearing what they have to say, and they appreciate it. So I like that she's doing that type of work where she actually gets on the ground and talks to people, because that's actually the direction that I think politics should go towards.
Yeah, I mean, just basically being real, like talking to people on the streets. I think that's why Steven Crowder is now really popular for the kind of conservative groups. He goes out actually like onto college campuses and stuff and just talks to people. I think that's what we need. So, yeah, just more communication without the media getting everyone all riled up. Do you think now that the Mueller reports come out that will improve?
That's a good question. I think that it might. I think that it's another thing that will help liberals and other people alike to just wonder, why have I been so wound up about this for the past 2 years if it ended up in nothing? What is the reason why, this been talked 1,000 times and ended up being a nothing burger? Like, was this as relevant as I thought or as I was made believe to be? And once they realize that, they might start questioning other things. And that's one of the things that I try to do is like, you're never going to like lose or take these people away from the indoctrinated place that they're in. 100% in one time, but you can put enough shards of questioning, enough shards of uh, things into their bubble that they actually, I thought I believed this, but maybe doubt, just put doubt in there, and to the point where they start to question themselves, they start to learn themselves, and that's how they grow. That's how they break free from it. So I think that it's important that we do this. It's important that we keep at it. We're never going to win this fight if we don't fight the fake news narrative.
Yeah, I mean, they're still trying to push the Russian narrative. Is basically just keep us divided as much as possible. And, we're divided on so many different issues. And only hot button issues, right? It's never like the really important stuff. It's always gun control, abortion, climate change. It's like you either believe in climate change or you're the climate change denier. There's no in between. It's like, well, what if I don't
Well,
believe
I'm
in
in between.
CO2 emissions, but I believe that, a bunch of other stuff is getting fucked up. And I believe that there's tests with aluminum, obviously coming from the sky, it levels that are like 20,000 times higher than normal, and aluminum doesn't naturally appear like that in the environment. You have to go through electrolysis to break it apart from the other molecules. So it's like things like that, we can't even discuss it, right? Because if I bring up the question, I'm a climate change denier.
Yeah, and this is something that a lot of people they ask me. And being in politics, I just have to be honest with people. They ask me, "Oh, do you think that this is the solution for this problem, or do you think that that is that solution for that problem?" And I'm like, it's a part of the solution, but complicated problems require complicated solutions and complicated answers. And that is the most honest thing that I can tell you as a person that is involved in politics. I haven't run for office, so I don't know if I could call myself a politician. But as a person that is involved in politics, I have to be honest. And I know people don't like that. They want, hardcore answers. They want the wall is what's going to end the immigration. Well, it's not. It's not. Complicated problems require complicated solutions. And you can't have just one person giving the answers. You have to have a group of experts. You have to have a group of people who actually know what they're doing, studying, and putting together an actionable plan. It's not Donald Trump out of nowhere that's going to give you the answers. Not Andrew Yang out of nowhere that's going to give you the answer to economy. It's not AOC. It's not Bernie Sanders. What Bernie Sanders knows. It's a group of people who actually have studied this all of their lives, who are the best, who are the experts that can tell me what type of taxation is the best for our society. It's not Bernie Sanders. It's just not. So if you
Wait,
have a
but they're
politician that
saying they're
can,
getting it from these experts. So what experts are you talking about? How do we even know?
yeah, well, you have
Yeah, I
you have to
mean,
name them. You have to have something that's actually made for the people, by the people, and you have to represent the people in this process. So the people that don't really want, the what kind of experts exactly? What kind of people who are actually doing this? We have to select a group of people who are the best. And I feel like a politician is his job is to select a good group around them to put together, the efforts to represent what the people want, not just go after people who legitimize his own beliefs. It's not about his beliefs, it's the beliefs of the people that he's representing that voted for him.
right, right. So, but see, here's why it gets so tricky is because they have, if you ask them, if you ask like a liberal politician about climate change, they would say, we have all the experts, and all the experts tell us to do this, which is massive carbon taxes and massive taxes on pretty much everything. Um, so they're saying the experts already say that. But then,
There aren't that many experts, like if on a national level, to decide on what's good for the country and what's good for the world. There should only be like maybe a handful of people who actually have a huge amount of knowledge, that have published thousands of articles and books and whatnot, that would actually know from that national perspective. And so I can call
Okay,
myself an
but here's
expert.
so if we're talking about climate change, right? Would you say that someone that's a scientist positioned in the Antarctic would be an expert if they study the Antarctic ice for environmental changes? Would that be considered an expert?
I think it depends on his level of experience. It depends on his level on what kind of opinions I'm asking of him. If I'm asking opinions on, I'm thinking about putting together a plan that is going to cost $40 trillion, I'm going to ask for a very, very experienced person. I think that having this specialized experts as well as generalist experts is a good idea. But the thing is that politicians, they only tell you what you want to hear. They figure out what people want to hear and they tell them. They don't care about what kind of cost that's going to take. They don't care what kind of impact that's going to give to the people. They just care about winning elections. And when they win elections, they don't do anything that they promised because it's not feasible in the first place. So they have to put together a group that's very open. We know who these experts are. We know what this group is all about, and we put together a conversation. And a lot of the things that I believe in also are referendums. You know, once this group of experts gets to a decision, throw it out for people to vote. Don't just vote on politicians. Vote on policies as well. So I think that should be done. But maybe you don't
I don't know if that's the
agree.
great solution, though. I feel like that's kind of what we're doing now, and it's just not really working. I mean, your solution is basically let's get better experts, and it's like, okay, so the experts that we're dictating now aren't good enough experts, so let's get better ones, which you may be right, maybe they're better, but then after a few years that gets corrupted again, and now you're back to square one.
No, I will stand by my judgment. The thing is that, for example, if you have a very difficult heart condition and you have to go through surgery, you're going to come to find out that there's only three doctors in the US who can perform that surgery. And if you're talking about national policy, you're going to find out that there's only two or three people who are actually knowledgeable enough, but they're probably not interested. They're probably not being asked. They're probably,
But what if the
I don't.
best solution is no surgery and there's some alternative medicine that's not allowed in the US, so you got to go to Mexico or Guatemala or someplace to get it?
So we import specialists from Mexico and Guatemala.
So we got to seek the best people out. But they wouldn't be allowed. They wouldn't even be they would be considered a quack doctor under the US because they're not practicing something that's
See,
legal.
and that's the thing about specialists as well. They can get together with people from all over the world, people who are equally as knowledgeable. There's heart surgeons in India who know a lot. There's heart surgeons in Germany. So put together something like a summit for these very, very smart people and have them come up with, I guess, their advices. Um, it doesn't mean that we're going to follow them, but it feels to me that what the group of people that's actually doing that now is biased individuals who are just pushed out there for political reasons, and they're not the best that they can be, and they're just not interested in doing anything other than just politicizing the issue. So it's like people who get money at this university, scientists, whatever, they're doing the studies, then they get picked and they get sent and they get used like puppets. But in reality, they're not the best that they could be. And I don't know if the best of the best would be interested in joining politics at all. But I think
That's why
that
I
it's
feel
a
the solution's
solution.
not political. I feel like the solution is to work with. I agree. I completely agree with your idea of like the experts are the ones you want to go to,
No, you
right?
don't.
No, I do. I just don't know if the government is the one to listen to the experts The people have to listen to the experts and say like, oh, okay, so if we're talking about climate change, okay, this expert says that we need to clean out the oceans because there's plastic debris, and this fucking genius guy created some device to clean it. Right? That's what we need. But if we go through the government, it's like, great, we invented the cleaning device. Now let's go through 7 years of government testing to make sure that it's safe enough to use the cleaning device. And then we run out of money, so now we can't afford to use the cleaning device. I feel like that's the government approach.
That's exactly right. So basically my point is I would trust a group of actually really, really good experts versus a politician that picks his answers out of his ass. But I think that, keeping government out of things is the best way to go, because I'm involved with this local politics and whatnot, and even to a national level. And it's like every single thing that you speak, you have to have, somebody second it. And then there's a motion to approve. And then there's voting. And then there's this. And then it goes into the thing. And then it takes years before it becomes actionable. So it's a part of it. It's a huge system of bureaucracy. So I think that keeping government away from things is the best way to go. But we can't just also expect our elected politicians to just have the answers for every problem, because that polarizes us to the extent that we are today. We're trying to look for simple answers, and there's no simple answers out there. If there were, we would have found them already.
So I think basically the gist of it is, if we're going to elect people, we need to elect people that realize that that's the problem, and the solution is actually the individual experts. So they're just going to basically destroy the barriers that have been built with the government. That's really, to me, that's the solution. Where a lot of people think the opposite, right? They think we need to combat climate change, so we need the government to get bigger to solve it.
Nope. Yeah, big government's not the answer for anything. Big government is the answer for more problems. Whenever you make the government bigger is not equal more efficient. You're going to make everything about government bigger as well. You're going to make bureaucracy bigger. You're going to make corruption bigger. You're just not going to make this ghost of a government big. You're going to make all of its little tiny ugly brothers bigger. So it's just not going to be fun. It's already way too big.
Yeah, that's the issue. It's like it needs to be shrunken, but so many people are brainwashed that it still needs to get a lot bigger. So, I hope people... The problem is, the easy solution, which is actually get the government out of the way and let the people fix it, is actually the counterintuitive solution. Because you're really voting to do nothing.
That's why I believe in referendums, because the politicians, they should be the ones putting this group of experts together, or this group of people together, and they should be the ones helping find the solutions, and they should be the ones bringing those experts and those advisors to the people to vote on them by themselves as a referendum. I don't think politicians should be the one making, all kinds of decisions about every single thing and just doing that by themselves. In Brazil, we had a referendum, for example, and this just happened in the UK just the other day with the Brexit. But I can speak with my own experience, we had a referendum in Brazil where they brought out all these people, and the government itself brought out their own experts, and they said, we have come to the conclusion that guns aren't safe. So we would like to do a referendum to see how do you feel about us taking your guns away. So they did the referendum, and the people said, no, thank you. We'll keep our guns. Thank you very much, but we'll keep our guns. And you know what the government did? It bypassed the people. The people didn't have an actual say on anything. It took the guns away from the people. So that's the same thing that's happening with Brexit. And that's why I believe in the power of referendums, because the people can always tell what they want and what's best for them. And I feel like also referendums should be very region-based, not just like, for example, one referendum for the whole country, like region and statewide wise based, not just spread out. We're such a big country. We're not going to agree with everything all the time.
Right. Right. I mean, we are. Yeah. So what's your thoughts on all these states trying to get rid of the Electoral College?
I think it's dumb.
It's kind of interesting. I mean, they didn't try this. I think the Democrats lost the popular vote a few elections ago. So it's like this is just going to come back to bite them. And what if Trump wins the popular vote? Now all these Democrat states that agreed to this are just going to lose?
Yeah, but then it goes back to your point of them trying to get illegals and 16-year-olds to vote. They're just at the same time.
Yes, because they know they have these strangleholds on specific areas. Like Broward County, Florida is a really good example of this. Because Broward County basically is like a Democrat stranglehold. That's where you have Debbie Wasserman Schultz. You have all these weird occurrences. You had like that voter fraud thing go on with the election of last year in Broward County. Like they have these stranglehold on places that they know they can commit fraud. And I think that's kind of what their gameplay is. So they're like, hey, we can commit fraud in California, New York, Broward County, a few, Chicago, pretty much everywhere on the West Coast. And by committing that voter fraud, it'll win them the popular vote.
Yeah, so that's why we need to not let them do that, because every person needs to be able to vote, and that's the thing about democracy. We're not a democracy; we are a republic, right? And we have to figure out who we are as a country. We're not a democracy. What's the democracy? It's supposedly the most amount of people would know what's best, and the most amount of people will decide for the other part, even if it's by 51 versus 49%. And so if we follow that same mindset, a lot of people were supporting Hitler in Germany. A lot of people. So you have, what is a lot of people? Are a lot of people always right? And I think they aren't. And so we have to realize that, because today you win, but tomorrow you may lose, and you'll be suffering the results of the majority of the people. Today you're on the majority side, tomorrow you might not be. So you have to really figure out what that means to you, and understand that we are a republic, and electoral college is just part of who we are and who we'll always be.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is you have like the states are really kind of separating even more. So you have the Democrat stranglehold states that are trying to push for destroying the Constitution, which is electoral college, illegal voting, not worrying about the individual freedoms, but they want the collective. And then you have states like, I think it was Missouri, that just passed a gun bill. I can't remember if it was Missouri or some other state with an M. I'll have to pull it up. But they just passed a bill that made basically all the federal gun laws illegal. Did you hear about that?
Was it Mississippi?
Was it Mississippi? I don't know. I'll have to pull it up.
I love Mississippi. Mississippi, if you vote for me, I'll move there tomorrow. Okay, I'll move there tomorrow. I love Mississippi. Mississippi, oh my God, it's heaven. It's heaven on earth. It's Mississippi. I'm convinced.
Have you been to Mississippi?
Hell yeah, I've been to Mississippi.
You go to Elvis's house?
No, I didn't. Every single thing about Mississippi was just, I was just shocked how perfect it was. It was a very good experience, I'm telling you. I even took my cat.
You took your cat to Mississippi?
Yeah.
What part? Memphis?
Meridian.
I've never been there. I've never even heard of it. But yeah, I have this up. It's Missouri. Missouri Senate bans all federal gun control laws in proposed bill. So they're
That's
going
good.
like even more towards freedom. I kind of like what Missouri's doing. A lot of people say that's crazy. You know, you want them to have, I guess federal laws would even include like machine guns, rocket launchers, tanks, flamethrowers. And I would say, yeah, we should. Just let them all have it. Because why are we judging someone on an item that they own? If someone's going to do something wrong with it, there's already laws on the books for that. And everyone's like, oh, well, let's try to
Well,
prevent that from happening.
the point of having weapons is not to use on one another, it's to use against the government. And if the government has those weapons, hell, I want to have the opportunity to have something that's equally as good because, I come from a government where, thousands and thousands and thousands of people died because of their policies. And nobody had a gun, nobody had nothing. And people were hostages to the government and to the state of unsafety that they caused. So, this is meant to fight the tyranny of the government. It's not meant to be used on one another. It's not like I'm going to use a rocket launcher on somebody that breaks into my house. However, if the government tries to take away my personal human rights and my freedom, then that's a different story. And so I 100% support that. And Missouri, good job. Good job.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's what the Second Amendment's for. I think in reality, if it was ever like that, it would be much tougher, right? Because there's also laws in the books where you can't incite violence. So if it ever gets to that point where you actually have to use the weapons against the government, how are you going to do that? I guess kind of the Bundy Ranch showdown was something where, you had a bunch of ranchers show up with like rifles and AR-15s and they fought off kind of non-physically, but they got the cops to leave them alone for a bit.
Well, all we need is the 3%. The 3% rule is what matters. When it comes to that, you're going to see that a lot of people are going to fall to the sidelines. They're not going to really do anything. But if we can get 3% of the population actually engaged towards looking for freedom, then we can do anything. I mean, I saw it happen in Brazil where we actually didn't have guns, but we pushed the government so far that they couldn't. They had to corner themselves, and they found no way out, and we got them impeached. So that was something really good. It didn't get to the point where they would have the stronghold that they wanted on us, that it would have been impossible to impeach them. So we didn't get to the point of Venezuela, and we found that out very quickly that we had to get them out of there before we did get to that point. However, I think that it might be a reality in America, and even if it isn't, we have the Second Amendment right to prepare for it. And the whole thing about the automatic weapons, the ban by Reagan, which I do not agree with, was that he was worried about a group called the Black Panthers getting a hold of those weapons and actually using those weapons against the people. So he was afraid that they were going to use them on the people, so he banned them because of one group that wasn't even that important in the first place. It wasn't important enough to make the whole country suffer. So I feel like a lot of this crisis, for these people coming up with these ideas, it's just to take our rights away, and that's why I'm very worried. I think that Mississippi again. Mississippi is gonna fall like right in line with that because they're amazing. It's just a matter of time. But I think Missouri is doing right.
Okay,
I love Mississippi.
I think we learned that you really like Mississippi.
Thank you. It's true. Mississippi.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well,